Now, just this weekend, I was in Los Angeles, and as I was in the airport, I saw National Geographic. It had a full feature article. The entire thing is on all the aspects of climate change. And if you look in the press, it's so interesting because the conversation of climate change is like come and gone and come and gone and come. And you know, with the election going on and all the craziness, it's perhaps getting less and less coverage than it used to, or maybe even should. Just in the last week or so, a chunk of ice fell off of Antarctica into the ocean. This is land-based ice. And it was about the size of Rhode Island. That's a state. A whole state worth of ice fell into the ocean. And it's sitting on another chunk of ice that's much, much, much bigger than this. And the ice scientists say it's hanging by a thread. It could come down any time. Now, if you went to CNN.com, they had this as their front story, and they interviewed one of the lead scientists here in Boulder. We have the National Snow and Ice Center, and that lead scientist, Ted Scambos, is the person who's going to talk next for us. And one thing you got to know about this guy, not only is he's just brilliant. He's a leading scientist in this world, but he just got off a plane from Norway. His connection from Frankfurt, I guess it was a little delayed. He got to the airport maybe a half hour ago, 45 minutes ago. God only knows what time it is in his world. He was out there with his other scientists, and they were in a meeting which he left short to, how they're going to do their next Antarctica expedition. Ted, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming to the expert. Ted Scambos!
Wow. I guess this better be good. I have no idea what I'm going to be able to say tonight because it is about 4 a.m. for me, but we're going to give it a shot. The title of my talk is Of Ice and Fire. Now, as far as I can tell, I'm supposed to provide the geek heft for the show tonight. And believe me, I'm your guy. But I'm going to ask you to put on your thinking caps too, because we're going to talk a little bit science-wise about what's going on, not just with global warming, but in particular in the poles, where the action is really big, actually, where the events are really large, where people have no doubt that there are major, major changes going on in the world. And I'll just point out this is a scene from the coast of Antarctica on a day when the sea ice was breaking up and melting, and the ocean was transitioning from this white ice-covered surface to a dark surface. These are the kinds of rapid changes that lead to feedbacks in the poles. That's why it's so amplified there. That's why the poles are the place where this is really leading this whole global warming thing. So what's going on here? Well, the IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, says that global warming in our planet is unequivocal. They use a slightly less assertive term, very likely, that it's caused, at least in part, by human changes to the atmosphere. We're seeing warmer air, about 1.1 degrees in the last century. We're seeing warmer ocean at pretty much the same temperature. That's the surface of the ocean. We're seeing earlier springtime. We're seeing less snow in the northern hemisphere, and a rising ocean, and in fact, an ocean that's rising at a faster rate. And we'll go over all of that here in the next few minutes. Now, the real action, as I said before, is here in the poles, and it's that area up at the top. We're all used to looking at the Earth in this fashion, equator in the middle and north up, and it really emphasizes the tropics and the places where most people live, but it doesn't emphasize the place where I work. And I'd like to change it there. That's a little better. I call this the when worlds collide view of the polar regions. So the poles are the places where the change is amplified. Now, why is that? Again, as you can see, it's a place where there's this big change, this big boundary. Large parts of the poles are right at this threshold where they're either covered with white snow, or there's an ocean that's covered with a thin film of ice, or there's a land surface that's covered with a little bit of snow or ice. And when that few degrees of melting that we have so far right now, when we have that slight little input of heat, there's a big change in the surface. You get melting, you turn from solid ice to liquid water, you change from something that will float, of course, to part of the ocean. Lots and lots of changes. Now here's the areas that we're going to look at. We're going to look at Antarctica a little later on. Ice shelves are disintegrating, as Joe mentioned. Glaciers are speeding up. And we're going to look at the Arctic Ocean, rapidly shrinking sea ice. And I think what happened last year actually was quite spectacular in that regard. Here's the Arctic sea ice last summer. Now you can see, I told you this was going to be a little bit geeky, but you can see those green lines there. Now, that outer red line is from all the way back in the 50s, 1950 to 2000. That's where the sea ice stood in September of every year. And by the year 2000, we were already starting to set records. And there you go, that green line was just 2005. Now the white that you see in the center there, that's last summer. There's a huge area there north of Siberia and north of Alaska that had never disappeared before. We'd never seen that area be open ocean before. You can see here on this chart how we track it with satellites. And it's coming along. It starts to decline there in the 90s, and then right here, 2007, it just takes a huge drop downwards, sticks out like a sore thumb. We were stunned by this. We couldn't believe that this would happen this fast.